Hello and welcome to the Kaiser University English Help Center, and welcome to this presentation in which we'll be exploring the annotated bibliography. We'll be going over a definition and purpose of an annotated bibliography. We'll go over the two main types of annotations that you might compose. We'll go for formatting and examples. We'll touch on how to determine the credibility of a source, and then we'll wrap it up with a brief summary and helpful resources. First off, what is an annotated bibliography? Let's break it up into its parts. A bibliography refers to everything the writer read during the research process. This differs from a references page, which refers only to those sources that were used in the paper, in the form of direct quotes or paraphrased ideas or other source information. An annotation is a summary or analysis of a source. Therefore, an annotated bibliography contains a bibliographic entry and a brief summary or critical evaluation of each source. What is the purpose? First off, it can be an aid in thesis construction as you go about looking for your specific research position or argumentative position. It can help you arrive at a specific thesis. It can also assist you in establishing key points and supporting elements. It can function as a literature review to help you find what material has already been written on your particular subject, what research has already been done. It can help you weed out sources that might not be appropriate for academic research. As you go about composing your annotated bibliography, you'll want to ask, is this source credible, and will this source be useful to my specific research? It can function as a demonstration of research, and in this way it can help add to the credibility of your work as a writer and a researcher. And last, it can help the research of others. Other scholars might wish to review the sources that you used. They also might wish to expand upon your research, in which case reviewing an annotated bibliography could be very helpful. Now let's explore the two main types of annotations. Starting with descriptive or informative. These annotations offer a brief summary of the source. In such annotations, it's helpful to address the primary thesis of the source, as well as its key points and conclusions. These annotations do not analyze, however, an author's findings. Next is the analytical or critical annotation. These annotations address the strengths and weaknesses of a source and may assess how the source will be used to support one's research or a particular thesis or argumentative position. Often you will compose annotations that combine these two elements, where you'll have informative and analytical elements, first summarizing the source, and then analyzing its strengths and weaknesses or how it might be used in your particular research. Let's talk about the descriptive or informative annotation a bit more. First off, it's important that it's written in your own words. Try to maintain and communicate the meaning of the original. Make sure that you don't include your own personal opinions or views of the source material. You must stick strictly to what the original writer had to say. It should contain all the main points of the original, but generally you won't include supporting points unless one or more of them is of unusual importance. In terms of the analytical or critical annotation, I should address the main purpose of the work. It's sometimes helpful to read the author's preface or article abstract as you try to determine this. It should offer a brief summary of its contents, touch on the intended audience. You should also explore its relevance or connection to your particular research topic or thesis. You might want to point out any special features of the source. And last, you'll address the strengths, weaknesses, and biases of the source. Some questions that you might look at: is it primarily fact, opinion, or propaganda? Is adequate evidence offered, and are the sources that are used credible, and are they clearly cited? Is the language primarily objective or emotional? Does the author oversimplify or use broad generalizations or hyperbole? And last, does the author mainly rely upon primary or secondary sources? In terms of format, the bibliographic entry will come before your annotation. So it's important that you ensure the accuracy of the bibliographic entry. When using APA format, you'll set your margins to 1 inch on all sides. You'll use 12-point font and hanging indents. This simply means that the left line will be flush with the left margin, and any lines after that will be indented. You'll organize the sources alphabetically according to the last name of the first author for each source. Now, some instructors may ask for chronological order rather than alphabetical, and that's up to the discretion of your instructor. Each annotation will be approximately 100 to 200 words. Although this is not a hard and fast rule, it depends on the length of the article and the scope of the particular annotated bibliography. So here we have a basic example. We have our bibliographic entry there at the top, followed by our brief annotation. As you can see, it's just a brief paragraph, and if you read this, you'll see that it is primarily a descriptive annotation. The author has not commented on the strengths or weaknesses of the source. The author has not touched on the credibility of the source or any things of this nature. It's primarily focused on describing the main points and purpose of the source. As you go about composing your annotated bibliography, it's vital to ensure that all of the sources you use are credible and that they are appropriate for academic research. So there's some questions that you can ask as you go about trying to determine this. First off, what is the author's educational and research background? What are the author's prior publications? Where was the source retrieved? If you're utilizing the academic databases, you really won't have to worry about this because the sources there are of the highest quality. But if you're using a general internet search, you need to be careful, and you'll need to put those sources through a more stringent vetting process. Keep an eye out for red flags such as advertising on the site or no identifiable author information. Is the organization credible? If the source is coming from an organizational website rather than a specific author. Does the author cite other reliable sources? It's important the author utilize source material, but also that those sources that are used are credible themselves. Sometimes an author might include a very lengthy references page, but the references simply refer back to his or her own work or to sources that might not be credible in themselves. So double check that. Also, has the source been peer reviewed? Again, if you're utilizing the academic databases, scholarly journals, you won't have to worry about this because those sources have gone through the peer review process. But again, if you're using a general internet search, be very careful about this. Make sure to weed out any sources that might not be appropriate. And last, when was the source written? If you're doing research in the humanities, this might not be as important because the humanities don't change quite as often. But if you're doing research in a field that advances very quickly, such as technology or medicine or computers, then something that was even written a couple years ago could have out-of-date information. So it's very important that you look at when the source was written and ensure that the information within the source is up to date. So to wrap up, an annotated bibliography can assist in thesis construction and can aid other researchers. It also functions as a demonstration of research and a review of literature. An annotation can be either descriptive or analytical, and each annotation should be clear, concise, and specific. Sources should be appropriate for academic research, and citations should adhere to appropriate guidelines. In addition to the Kaiser English Help Center and the Kaiser Online Writing Lab, these are some additional helpful resources. I hope that this was a helpful review of the annotated bibliography. Thank you for viewing the presentation.